The god from his world mistakenly caused Kelvin Celsius to die and be reincarnated into another world by the goddess of reincarnation. Despite his affection for her, he'll have no memories of her or his previous life due to reincarnation. As a plus, however, he'll receive an assortment of new skills to use in the new world as a trade-off for his reincarnation. Awakening in a forest, a menu pops up in front of Kelvin that relays a message from the goddess of reincarnation detailing his reincarnation situation, the world he's in, and his stats. Looking at his stats on the menu and finding out he's a summoner, the menu suggests heading to the nearby town and registering as an adventurer at the Adventurers Guild there. Wasting no time, the two head to the nearby town, and Kelvin learns that his pre-reincarnation self added the goddess of reincarnation as something he tamed, much to his chagrin. Arriving in the town of Parth, Kelvin reveals how Melfina became the goddess of reincarnation and how he convinced her to become his tamed companion. It's also revealed that Kelvin gave up his previous life memories in exchange for more skill points. He then asks if he'd be able to summon her. However, Melfina reveals that Kelvin is unable to do it as his MP level isn't adequate as of yet. Soon, Kelvin talks with the guild receptionist at the Lively Adventurers Guild to register there. Kelvin can read and write in that world thanks to his understand language and literacy skills and is able to register himself in the guild. To avoid attracting attention from the nation lords because of his title summoner, Kelvin puts himself down as a green mage. Once registered as an F-rank adventurers, the receptionist discloses the guild's ranking system and other pertinent information. For his first job, Kelvin chooses to hunt blue slimes as the first quest he'll take on. Afterward, Kelvin purchases a wooden rod from the weapons store and heads to the grassy plains outside Parth to search for some blue slimes. Upon finding some, Kelvin uses his S-ranked appraisal eye on them and learns their stats. Learning from Melfina that one must gain a monster's consent by weakening them, Kelvin decides not to use his magic and instead use his wooden rod to attack them. However, this attempt fails and causes him to get struck in the stomach by one of the slimes. Despite this, Kelvin continues to try and fight it and is soon able to make a contract with the slime. Kelvin names his new slime companion Clotho and learns he can communicate with his companions through wordless contact. After calling that skill his servant network, Kelvin summons Clotho and, with his help, defeats the slimes in the area. Returning to the town with enough gold for a room and board at an inn, Kelvin takes a detour down an alleyway and finds a slave trader showcasing his slaves for sale, one in which a half-blooded elf catches Kelvin's eye, but he pays no mind to it. Later, Kelvin gets a room at the Spirit's Song Inn and enjoys a meal there. The following day, Kelvin goes on a monster hunting spree with Clotho. At the Adventurers Guild, Kelvin learns from Ange that he's been promoted to E rank, but expresses concern for him taking on higher-ranked missions without forming a party. This was mainly due to Kelvin hiding he was a summoner to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to him. Noting that Kelvin will be vying for D rank next, Ange advises that he upgrade his equipment before he takes the necessary steps toward his new goal. Acknowledging the advice, Kelvin asks to take on a D rank quest. It's then that an adventurer named Cashel suggests that he take the Black Ghost Knight quest. After his chat with Ange on a recent successful mission, Cashel introduces himself to Kelvin as a D-rank adventurer. A conversation from some adventurers in the guild reveals that Cashel has the strength of a B rank and is a rookie crusher. Cashel offers Kelvin to join his party. However, Ange admonishes it as the Black Ghost Knight is reportedly stronger than the others. On the other hand, Kelvin declines the offer, and when Cashel still insists, Kelvin uses his appraisal eye on Cashel to learn his stats and ominous title. So, in light of this, Kelvin suggests they have a competition between them of who can defeat the Black Ghost Knight first. Cashel accepts the terms with a tad of reluctance and leaves as Kelvin plots how he'll handle the situation. Cashel regroups outside the guild with his two shady party members, Gimel and Raj. Gimel informs Cashel of Kelvin's stats and skills, and the other member, Raj, is ordered to be the gentle muscle against Kelvin. However, he refuses to be gentle and proclaims he'll handle it the way he does with the others. Around dusk, inside the Wicked Spirit's castle, Cashel's group reaches the castle's hallway, just before the throne room, where they find the bodies of undead skeletons scattered across the floor. Kelvin comes out of hiding with his verdant staff in hand, and Cashel's group notice this internally, citing that he's a wind mage and how they'll handle him. However, Kelvin calls out to the group that they're hunting him and they, in turn, believe that Kelvin is after the bounty on Cashel's party members' heads. Uninterested in that, Kelvin taunts the group, making Raj step forth to try and attack Kelvin, only to fall into his swampy floor trap called Mudvine. Cashel deduces that Kelvin cast the spell using his concealment skill, and following his instincts, Gimel fearfully flees the scene, only to be confronted by the recently evolved Clotho. A flashback reveals that after Kelvin killed enough monsters, Clotho evolved from a blue slime to a slime Glatinia. Back in the present, Clotho easily defeats Gimel, and then Raj escapes his swampy confines only to be constricted by Clotho. Cashel is sequentially dealt with by Kelvin, who deduces his adversary's motives for hunting adventurers as they're all tied up. Wasting no further time, Kelvin heads into the room where the Black Ghost Knight stood and, after using his appraisal eye on him, learns his name is Gerard as well as his stats and skills. After he observes Gerard's skills, Kelvin notes his interest in recruiting him. This leads to the two having a civil conversation, and Kelvin learns a bit about why Gerard became a monster. Wanting to make a contract with Gerard, Kelvin duels with him, and with the help of Melfina's advice and Clotho. During the fight, Gerard recalls the memories of the fall of the kingdom he once served called Alcarl, when an elven emissary from the western continent named Gildora came and asked him to join the Lysia Empire and destroy the Empire of Durames. The king refused the offer, but Gildora warned of the consequences of refusing the offer. The kingdom fell to ruin shortly after, and Gerard's wife Betty and daughter Connie passed away. Back in the present, Gerard vows to avenge the land of Alcarl, which keeps him duty-bound to the realm of the living. However, Kelvin defeats him with the combined efforts of Clotho. The next day, Kelvin turns in the quest for the Black Ghost Knight and learns that Cashel's group was imprisoned and will likely be executed for their crimes. As Kelvin celebrates his accomplished quest, Ange informs him that he's to be promoted even further by the guild master. Atop the stairway, Kelvin runs into a finely dressed older man. Kelvin meets the guild master to Parth's Adventurers Guild Leo, and he uses his appraising eye on Kelvin to discern who he is. Within the guild master's room, Kelvin is served some tea by Leo as they discuss Kelvin's recent accomplishment in subjugating the Black Ghost Knight and revealing Cashel's insubordination. However, Leo asks Kelvin if he is, in fact, a summoner, and after following the advice of his tamed monsters, admits that he is, but asks why Leo did nothing about Cashel when he knew about his shady involvement. To that point, Leo confesses that he couldn't lay a hand on Cashel because he's a noble from the militant nation of Trison and needed solid proof for his claims. Getting to the point of the conversation, Leo expresses his desire to become friends with Kelvin, noting he's met otherworlders in the past, being the heroes of the Holy Empire Durames. Melfina notes that she was the one who reincarnated them and promises to tell Kelvin more later if he's curious. Leo continues his explanation about the heroes of Durames, claiming that the priestess there foretold of the revival of the demon lord. Kelvin deduces that Leo wants him to protect the town in the stead of the heroes, and Leo confirms it. He does list some inciting incentives for agreeing to his terms, and Kelvin does. Afterward, the innkeeper Claire congratulates him for reaching B rank in the guild. Enjoying his lunch in his room, Kelvin has Melfina disclose her information on the heroes of Durames to him. Her information on the heroes was vague, and they were chosen due to their good looks and knowledge. After hearing this, Kelvin decides to retrieve his reward money from Clotho and heads off to the alleyway where the slaves are being sold. Kelvin intended to enhance his party's strength with a rear guard and one that hadn't been purchased before by another user. That's because a slave's master has complete control of where their slave's skill points are allocated. Upon reaching the alleyway, Kelvin spots the half-elf that he from the other day. The slave trader reveals that nobody wishes to purchase her due to her curse that burns anyone who touches her. Getting more information about the curse from Melfina, that it's the Fire Dragon King's curse and that the only way to break it is in a rank white magic spell called Sacred Bless. After leaving the scene, Kelvin later returns and purchases the half-elf named Ethel, with whom they get acquainted midway through their return to the inn. Kelvin also casts Sacred Bless onto Ethel, breaking the curse placed on her. Afterward, Claire has Ethel dressed in a maid's outfit at the inn, and they both enjoy dinner together. Later, in Kelvin's room, Ethel is told all of Kelvin's secrets about himself and has her allocate her skill points to her choosing. However, one snag hit is that they have to share a bed, causing Kelvin to experience a sleepless night. A month after Kelvin purchases Ethel, the two explore the dark purple forest and subjugate many of the monsters there to level up Ethel and have her gain new skills and abilities. Later that day, Kelvin's group reported the successful subjugation of a wicked Sagatry to Ange at the Adventurers Guild, who congratulated them. She also informs them that one more successful quest they complete will allow them to take the rank up exam. It would allow Kelvin to become rank A and Ethel rank B. After a brief chat about Ethel's last exam, Ange invites Ethel to try out a new sweet store she found, and Ethel asks that Kelvin come along too. Kelvin is then coaxed into agreeing to the invitation by Ange. Eventually, Kelvin meets Ange outside by a fountain, and they're soon joined by Ethel, who wore a beautiful dress that Kelvin compliments, thanks to Ange's pushy nature. Later, they sit at a table after purchasing some sweets, and Ethel tries to feed Kelvin some of her cake. The act draws a small crowd of men to comment on it, which Kelvin clarifies, and not wanting to be left behind, Ange does the same with a sweet roll. More attention is then drawn to the group as Kelvin tries to handle the situation, but is interrupted by Tabra, the third prince of Trison, and his two guards. One of the guards suggests that Tabra use his position to discipline Kelvin for his lowly commoner status. Tabra also takes an interest in Ethel and offers to forgive them if Kelvin hands over one of his ladies to him. Kelvin then quickly deals with the two guards and then uses a gravity spell on Tabra while asking him why he's in Parth. Overwhelmed by Kelvin's spell, Tabra claims he's there to meet with Leo about a strong adventurer he wanted to meet with. Tabra planned to have the adventurer serve him, and Kelvin revealed that he must be the adventurer and refused to serve under him. Once that was settled, Kelvin suggests they shop for more sweets, and the girls agree. At the Holy Empire of Dorami's great cathedral, the priestess Colette prays to the statue of Melfina, asking for an audience with her. Melfina answers the prayer, and Colette gives her an update on the heroes of Doramis. Pleased by the news, Melfina gives Colette an oracle that the heroes need to exterminate an evil in the western continent, and to stay far away from Parth. Once that is over, the heroes arrive at the scene, and Colette relays the oracle she received to the group. That night at the inn, Ethel thanks Kelvin for helping her that day, and Kelvin thinks nothing of it, but apologizes about them having to continue sharing a bed. It leads to a heart-to-heart with Ethel feeling inadequate to Kelvin's taste in a woman, but he denies any of what Ethel believes. The following day, Kelvin reviews the stats of the hero party with Gerard, Clotho, and Ethel. It's unanimously thought that the heroes' levels are far too low from what they expected. On the other hand, Kelvin is content that he successfully created a staff from a monster material drop, but it's said that he had many failures that led up to that one success. Gerard notes that Kelvin created a dreadnought shield and crimson cape for him. Ethel then notes that she created a sage's black robe for Kelvin with her sewing skill. Claire then knocks on their door to inform Kelvin that the guild wants to speak with him. In the guild master's room, Leo informs Kelvin that a rank D dungeon called the Hermit's Cave where a secret room was discovered containing a powerful demon inside it. Leo also mentions an incident involving the third prince of Trison earlier that day and the troubles that have arisen from it. When asked if Kelvin would do the quest, Kelvin accepts it. Afterward, Kelvin, accompanied by Ethel and Gerard, visits the Hermit's Cave dungeon and learns from Erd there about the situation surrounding the dungeon. The group enters the dungeon, and once they reach the secret room, and enter after they enter it, find a demon woman chained to a monolith. Another demon sitting atop a pile of bones introduces himself as Archdemon Victor. Kelvin then asks who the chained woman is, and Victor responds while sealing the room off as the demon lord's daughter. Melfina then informs Kelvin that there were 3 demon lords in the past, and the lady must be Gustav, the current one's daughter. Kelvin then claims Gustav didn't have any children, and Victor informs them that Gustav didn't officially have any kids. Furthermore, Victor adds that he leads the group into a trap to eat and absorb their power. Victor lunges toward the group, but Gerard protects him with his shield, and Victor's plans are sequentially revealed to become the next demon lord. Melfina then comments how Kelvin's nasty habit has come to light again, and Gerard agrees. The habit is that Kelvin smiles before he faces off a strong opponent, making him a battle junkie. An exhilarated Kelvin tells Victor of his excitement fighting against him, and his opponent humors him by casting the black magic spell Hades' Army. The spell resurrects a group of demons from one of the skeleton piles nearby, and with a snap of his finger, Victor orders the monsters to attack. Kelvin notes that the monsters are B-ranked and, with his wand, casts Wind Shot to destroy a small pack of them while Gerard helps him take out the rest. Victor compliments the two's skills and then uses a smoke bomb to conceal his presence and launch a sneak attack. However, Kelvin could sense his presence and alerts Gerard, who immediately counterattacks. Despite this, Victor overwhelms Gerard and directs his attention to Kelvin, who has Clotho use magic absorption on him and then casts Glory's Sanction. The attack binds Victor's left arm, but it's not enough to hold him. Hence, Kelvin casts Vortex Edge to enchant Gerard's sword. As Gerard goes to attack Victor, the demon tries to launch a sneak attack against Kelvin, who had Ethel reveal herself and shoot her blaze arrow at Victor. With Victor's right arm charred beyond use, Gerard then slices off his left arm. Although pleased by this outcome, Kelvin has the group fall back as his glory's sanction just expired. Victor compliments the group for doing the second most significant damage ever done to him and blames losing his edge from the peace of that era. However, Victor wasn't going to give up and casts Jin's scrimmage on himself to enshroud himself in a dark, ominous force. To prevent the spell from finishing being cast, Kelvin, Ethel, and Gerard each cast a spell or use a skill against Victor, but they're too late. Kelvin then has Gerard use his loyalty skill to max power. Once Victor lunges at the group, Kelvin casts Earthen Rampart to block him, but he breaks through it, forcing Gerard to use his shield as a last resort defense. Victor then manages to get the upper hand on Gerard. But before he can attack him any further, Ethel distracts Victor's attention with some arrows. It allows Gerard to launch a counterattack against Victor, who then is overwhelmed by Clotho spitting out all of the failed weapons Kelvin created at him. A trifecta attack launched by Kelvin, Ethel, and Clotho causes Victor to be slammed against a wall, and for rubble from a pillar to topple over towards Sierra Ball. Quickly, Victor catches and moves the piece of rubble that would have crushed Sierra, moves it to the side, and faints on his back while conceding defeat. Kelvin then calls out Victor's lie to eat Sierra, to which he answers that if he didn't lie, Kelvin's party wouldn't have fought as hard as they did against him. To his admission, Gustav entrusted Victor with protecting Sierra as her caretaker. A flashback shows Victor's past as the caretaker for Sierra. In it, Victor is shown training Sierra in magical pugilism. Eventually, the hero's party attacked the Demon King's castle. Although King Gustav's life was in danger, he put a seal on Sierra that only a human could break and sent her to a faraway place where she'd be safe. When Victor finally found Sierra, he'd protect her and wait for the hero to be long since dead and for an era of peace to revive her so she could become the next Demon King. Before he dies, Victor asks that Sierra join Kelvin's party and refuses to join Kelvin's party since his loyalty only lies with Gustav. Kelvin then breaks the seal on Sierra, and when she awakens, she tearfully curses Victor and her father for their selfishness. Outside, the party is met by Erd, who is shown proof of subjugation of the demon in the dungeon. Erd accepts the item, but asks who the lady Kelvin was carrying on his back was, and Kelvin answers that it was someone the demon possessed. In truth, it was Sierra wearing a camouflage hairpin to hide her wings and horns. Afterward, Kelvin evolves Gerard into an Abyssal Knight Commander. After Kelvin has a brief conversation with Sierra, he and his party take Sierra to Parth and show her around a bit. Later, Kelvin reports to the Adventurers Guild about successfully subjugating the demon in the dungeon, which elevates him to rank in the guild. The receptionists and other guild members would celebrate this accomplishment back at the inn. Sometime after the party, Sierra notes exciting the outside world is and remembers a memory of her with Victor. Kelvin formally tames Sierra as one of his tamed monsters and later shows off the fruits of his S-rank blacksmithing and Ethel's S-rank sewing in his room. Sierra showcases the weapon Erendite, created from Victor's armor and Armor Queen's terror. Onto Gerard, he receives a new magical sword called Daneslave. As for Kelvin and Sierra's weapons, they'll have to wait to show them until they get into battle. Tired and hungry, Ethel asks Kelvin what he wants and responds that he wants some rice. However, Ethel and the others have no clue what rice is and go on a tirade about what rice is to his clueless companions. Eventually, the group ride on a wagon heading toward Toraj, and Seraj spots a river, which Kelvin asks if she'd like to go fishing. Ignorant of what fishing is, Kelvin promises to show her what it is when they reach Toraj, where rice is said to grow. Just then, Gerard reports that Melfina has gone missing, and Kelvin recalls wanting to summon her, but cannot due to her god status. As a compromise, Melfina allows Kelvin to summon one of her avatars as she goes on vacation for a while. After a brief chat about a boat that Sierra saw and a page in the book Ethel was reading, Sierra notes that some hidden people were watching them. At that moment, a group of bandits led by a lady introduced themselves as the infamous Black Wind Gang. The wagon driver recognizes them as an infamous gang that mainly work around Toraj, but were said to have been taken out by an A-rank adventurer from Trison. Using an appraisal of the bandits, Kelvin allows Sierra to handle them independently, but doesn't allow her to use the Erendite. Exiting the wagon, Sierra first handily defeats the bandit and Sue who tries to capture her. Frightened by Sierra's unnatural strength, the head of the bandits sends out the others to deal with her, but quickly gets overwhelmed as well. A large mallet-wielding bandit named Gilda also gets overpowered by Sira despite having above 200 level strength. Kelvin from the wagon then comments on how the bandits didn't stand a chance since Sira's level was 75 compared to the bandits' levels of 25-30. With the bandits now captured, the head bandits claim their boss is level 70, which intrigues Kelvin and asks her for more information. Finally reaching their destination of Toraj, Kelvin notes how it resembles old Japan. Gazing at the sea, Sira internally notes to Victor that she finally made it to the sea and that Victor would be proud of her, and of his promise that he'd teach her how to swim. Hence, an elated Sira asks Kelvin to teach her how to swim, and blushing, Kelvin agrees to the request. Afterward, the group reaches Toraj's Adventurers Guild and turns in the bandits they captured. They are formally thanked by the guildmaster Mist. As Mist informs the group, she and Leo were at the same party back in the day, and his title was the Analyzer. Moving onward, they discuss the matters involving the Black Wind, where Trison's famous adventurer Kristoff supposedly destroyed the group. However, they're now back in capturing people for the slave trading business. Despite knowing that the group is in Toraj, no actions can be taken against them because it would cause a rift between the Trison and Toraj. Wanting to find the bandits, Kelvin has Sira try and locate one of them. Upon trying, Sira finds a level 50 person by the town entrance. Hearing this excites Kelvin as the heroes of Doramis arrives in the town. Later, the heroes of Doramis learn of the bandit situation, and although Toya wants to deal with them, Setsuna admonishes him from getting involved. She reasons that they're to head west under the guidance of Melfina, but Toya insists they stay and help the people that are in need. While Toya and Setsuna bicker about the situation, Miss notes how Kelvin requested she relay this information to the heroes and recalls how Kelvin had a plan that'd suit his needs. Down in the bandit's base, a bandit named Hope was about to violate a little slave girl named Ruka, but Kelvin's party arrives at the scene in the nick of time. Hope then tries to attack them, but is taken out by a Gerard in a single punch. Upstairs, Kristoff, revealed to be the bandit leader, talks with Prisra, informing her that Karna, the head bandit from earlier, had been captured. Prisra reveals that Trison pays them to capture people and sell them off as slaves. At that moment, Hope appears at the room door and faints to the ground upon its opening. Kelvin then goes after Kristoff, Sira after Prisra, and Gerard after another member named Adu. Although Kristoff is excited to fight against Kelvin, he corrects them that they're not there to fight, but to prepare themselves for the main course. Soon the heroes of Doramis reach the bandits' hideout, and reaching the room where the slaves were held captive, the heroes also encounter Clotho. Drawing his sword against Clotho, Luca stands in the protection of Clotho, claiming it's the pet of their savior. Understanding his mistake, Toya introduces himself as the hero of Doramis to them all. A member of the group named Nana communicated with Clotho, and revealed it was there simply to protect the slaves from any harm. Also, Luca's mom asks the heroes that they save the Ranka heroes who are in trouble. Wasting no time, the heroes rush to where Kristoff and his companions were at and find them all knocked out on the ground. They then confront Kelvin's group, who had awaited the heroes' arrival. And that's the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment how I can improve my videos. See you in my next video. Bye.